GTT.
Not sure if your audio sounds professional? A Soundcheck by George the Tech removes all doubts and explains the next steps. Audiobooks, podcasts, or voiceovers. For content creators, we do it all. New customers get 20% off with coupon code XPTO.
George the Tech.
I like to have control. I don't want the equipment to control me as much. So the old saying, KISS, keep it simple.
George the Tech.
Hey, everybody, it is George the Tech. And this is the first interview I've done in quite a while. Nobody's fault but my own. I've just had so many other things I've been focused on lately. And I had a really cool opportunity to speak with, and really, honestly, for the very first time, get to know and meet with a talent in the audio industry that I've never, a part of the audio industry I've never really had any time and exposure on. And that is, and here is with me today, is Ed Moskowitz. How you doing, Ed?
I'm fine, George. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm not in my usual place. I'm not at home. I'm not even in a studio. I'm in a bedroom because I got kicked out of the studio by my friend who owns the studio and needed to do more important things, like probably do a spot for ABC. His name's Rick Robles, actually. Scott Rummel, who is a mutual friend of ours, knows Rick. So I almost got to do this interview from a studio on a U87, and we would have both been on U87s. That would have been cool.
The luck of the draw. How can I say?
Here we are. But anyway, the reason we're chatting today was I'm working on a book, and the book is hopefully going to release by spring in 2026. The book's title is The Voice Recording Handbook. And of course, it's going to be me trying to remember everything I know about recording voice, spoken word, I should really be clear about, right? And when I mentioned this to our friend, mutual friend, Scott Rummel, he thought, I got a guy for you. You really should talk to Ed because he works in television sound. Beyond that, I don't know anything about you. So I would love to know a little bit about your origin story and the different types of show you've worked on. Of course, I know you have an extensive IMDb list, which our viewers can check out. Give me a little bit of background. Have you been in SoCal or in production since you got out of high school? What's your story? When did you start getting into the field of audio and production?
So after high school, going to college, when I started working in theater and doing all kinds of theater stuff. Did summer stock.
Theater tech or performance or both?
Not performance, all theater tech. My degree, which is from Cal State Fullerton, is in technical theater. And I did summer stock up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Because of one of the people who was at Cal State Fullerton, I was able to get into Disneyland on the tech crew during the holidays season when manpower requirements ramp up. And I started working on the stage crew, which was mostly sound and a little bit of lighting. And I went towards the sound side. And I also, while I was working at Disneyland, I also worked at Knott's Berry Farm doing sound. And that was the changeover from, for those of you who can remember this far back, Gypsy Camp became the Roaring Twenties area at Knott's Berry Farm, and the John Wayne Theater became the Good Time Theater. And I was there during that transition. So, and during all of that, because of working at Disneyland used to do a lot of rentals from a company here in Hollywood called Hollywood Sound Systems. And their list of credits at that point were Miss America, the Emmys, the Oscars, all kinds of reinforcements for all the networks.
Yeah.
And I became friends with a whole lot of mixers, and some of them became my mentors. And the networking led to another, and then I went to work for Hollywood Sound and was fortunate enough in that time that I worked on Saturday Night Live as the kid from LA who came with all the rental gear because Hollywood Sound rented the interface to the techs at Rock Center at NBC New York.
No way.
Yeah, because Lorne Michaels' original concept for the show included the musicians, which we all know about the musical acts for Saturday Night Live. And Lauren wanted the audience to feel as if they were at a concert, in a large venue. And he wanted
very different from that's very different from traditional
variety show kind of things. Yeah.
Right.
He wanted the musicians to feel like they were doing a concert, not just performing for a small TV audience. So there was never any performing to track. It was live music, and Hollywood Sound supplied the interface for the studio to the control room, including extra microphones as needed, custom monitor speakers, the PA for the audience, because in the concept of Studio 8H, the audience is a horseshoe around on a second tier, basically, right? Because they use underneath the bleachers are all the support. That's where all the support rooms are. So the bleachers, but they're organized in a horseshoe shape around Studio 8H, which, if you're a historical nut, Studio 8H was the Toscanini studio for NBC's orchestra in the early days. And so all the interfaces all had to be updated. And I wound up.
But it was a room designed for sound.
The stage was the prime sound stage in Rockefeller Center.
Mm-hmm.
Studio 8H is completely suspended in the building. So in the corners of the rooms, which you don't see, are steel support cables. The whole studio floats.
Wow.
It's hard to imagine that concept, but you walk around the edges of the stage, and there's the rubber gasket, from the floor, so it's decoupled from the building.
Right. It's more akin to a suspension bridge with sections that join with, that are allowed to move.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. I had no clue that was the case at that. I've never been there. Had I visited now I'm way more motivated to get a tour, of that place, because I want. But that's mind blowing. I mean, I try to tell people with all their voice actor home studios, of course, the cost of getting a studio set up at home can get expensive when you're getting a booth. And I just tell them, like, this is a tiny, tiny drop in the bucket of the cost of what they really invest in big spaces to get it to be quiet.
Correct.
And so all that effort was done in the pursuit of quiet on that stage. No subway noise, no air conditioning noise.
No building noise, no air conditioning noise per se. You can filter out some of that, and when you get the audience in, the audience itself filters part of the building noise by just mass absorption.
When you showed up at 8H, you were showing up as a live sound reinforcement tech, correct? And
because I was not part of NABIT at that point, and NBC,
that's the union
for NBC, I couldn't really touch anything. I could just point, direct, and guide. And I spent a lot of in the control room. I spent a lot of time with the A2, the second audio guy, who Joel Spector worked for Scotty Schachter, who was the mixer. And Joel and I became good friends. In fact, I saw him this past Saturday while we were in New York for a wedding, and Joel and I are still close friends. He stood up for me at my wedding, that it developed that kind of relationship. And so I myself physically built some of the 27 pair audio snakes that were laid down for the stage, which did not get pulled out until I think about 5 years ago when they started converting to Cat 5 and Cat 6 cable.
Are they running Dante or something?
They're running Dante, they're running all kinds of stuff.
Right.
And so some of my big heavy copper mult pair cables, I wired up, I don't even know how many mult boxes with XLR connectors. I used to work at Hollywood Sound. I had my own little bench and I would sit there and strip tin and solder all day and all night,
I got it when I was at Virginia Tech. I was in I worked for the AV crew, local. That was like the first thing they made me do is like solder on this multi-pin, with 108 pins or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. And I remember doing that. Wow. That's so amazing. So
that was a lot of training. Then I used to commute, because so the show was Saturday night. The rehearsals were Friday. So I would take the red eye Thursday night from LA to New York and show up Friday morning for the rehearsals, be there all day, be there Saturday for the show, and come back home to LA on United Flight 1 on Sunday morning. So for a young kid from Hollywood, that was a lot of fun. I'm telling you, yeah. Were you aware of the Davises had Synergetic Audio Concepts, which was an educational program that basically taught about speakers and sound reinforcement and all of that kind of stuff they did a lot of consulting for Altec Lansing.
Okay.
Which then became Altec and then JBL separate, and they used to do seminars around the country. And so because I was traveling and at that point, I was the sales manager for Hollywood Sound, I got to travel and, I'd go visit them when they were teaching, and it was I had a lot of fun.
Amazing.
That
cool
also got me into the Macy's parade. I worked on the float with Barry Manilow, which was for WXLO, the radio station in New York. There was a big jukebox, and that was the float. And Barry, I had that one we did to Playback. And in those days, you'll appreciate this. The Playback, so that it was stay in sync with the stuff in the truck, I played back on a Nagra, right? And I with the resolver, and because travel was what travel was, we didn't check it in. That sat in my lap from LA to New York, along with the reel for Playback. And then one other year I did the Village People, and that was a hoot. Let me tell you, on the float.
I love these stories because I can't help but think of things I've done over my 25 years or so that parallel it. They're not this, but like I used to do broadcast engineering for 94 WYSP, which is now 94 WIP, which is the Eagles football team. That's the station that carries Eagles. It's been carrying them for 35 years. And when I was doing it, the remote engineering for all the games from 2001 to 2004, I physically carried with me a Telos Zephyr codec box in my carry-on.
Yep.
And it was the one with built-in mic preamps and head, so that if our entire kit got lost in transit, you were fell in the ocean or in the who knows what, or all our racks of gear, we had 2 Sennheiser Sportscaster headsets, a Zephyr, and I could show up and plug it into the wall and get the show on the air, right?
Yeah.
So I know what you mean. That's how important that thing. It was almost like the Blues Brothers with the handcuffs on the briefcase. You know what I mean? It's that critical, right?
Yeah. So I was there at Saturday Night Live. I was there for the Blues Brothers. I was there for the Bees.
Oh,
I was there for remember Brian Wilson was on the show one year and played the piano in a sandbox. So he thought he was at the beach. I was there for that. The land shark. Yeah.
How long did you sustain this commute? How many years?
Little over 2 years. I'm part of what some people refer to as a third season survivor, because there was a purge after season 2 of NBC personnel. I survived. So there were other people that survived. If you saw the movie that came out last year,
I enjoyed it very much.
Which I had an absolute ball, because the detail to accuracy was really, they paid attention to a lot of it.
That's
and
what I
they
heard.
even referred to the sound man in the movie. They referred to him as Scotty. So, that was an homage to Scotty Schachter. Bob Lifton, who was a record producer, was the audio consultant to Saturday Night Live for many, many years. It's how I met Phil Ramone. And, okay, done throwing names.
So then storyline in terms of your skills. So now sound, location, or reinforcement at one of the most renowned shows of all time, still in the air these 51 years later. But did you start at some point? Did you join the union, or did you end up moving?
So here's what
happened next.
So here's the sequence. So while I was working for Hollywood Sound, because of the rentals that we were doing and all around town, I met many of the mixers in town who were doing television, and we would rent equipment to. He should rest in peace. Ed Green, who was the supreme big event mixer, became a friend and a mentor. Sean Murphy, who was a scoring mixer, became a friend and a mentor. And I started meeting people at the studios, and I got into the union because the head of the sound department at Warner Brothers had a small division that did 24-frame video sync playback. So what that is when you would see a TV in the scene in a movie, to get that TV to look right, it had to be 24-frame video, not 30-frame, which is what's standard, and it had to be synced to the camera. Otherwise, you may have seen shows where the black bar the shutter bar would travel up through the frame.
Sure.
What he did is he helped develop a system that synced that. So I went to work there doing that stuff, which got me onto more sets, doing things like doing playback, like on Tootsie and E.T. and The Big Chill and tons of other movies. And I met.
What would the playback be used for on E.T.?
On E.T., all the time that Drew Barrymore was watching the television while E.T. was looking over her shoulder,
right,
as well as the medical sequences where E.T. was ill, all those monitors that they set up in the quote-unquote hospital set, those were all sync. Those were all 24-frame sync. And so there were tons of those shows, and so I got to meet more mixers and became friends with a lot of them. And then I met some people at Metro Media who then went to Universal Studios when Norman Lear's company went to Universal. And I got a job as an A2 on Silver Spoons.
Okay. I watched that as a kid. Yeah.
And all of those Norman Lear comedies, that was set up like a factory, because all the shows. They would do 2 shows on one stage. They had the audience, the live audience built. The bleachers were in the middle of the show. One show would work Monday, Tuesday. One show would work Thursday, Friday. On Wednesday, the set crew and the gang would come in and they would rotate the bleachers all the way around.
Wow.
So one set would be on the east wall, one set would be on the west wall.
They should have shot it at the Carousel of Progress in Disneyland.
Almost.
Disney World.
Yeah. So we did that, and I started working production sound for sitcoms. And then while you're there, it's more networking and stuff. And I got invited to go to, I'd worked with a bunch of people who were working all over. And then I got a call to come interview for the Golden Girls. And this was after they premiered. It was middle of season 2. And I had met one of the producers on a show called Anything for Money, which was a live location show where they set almost candid camera style. I did the interview, and I had just finished a feature as the mixer. I just finished a remake of Journey to the Center of the Earth. And I was in line to do another feature, and I got this call. I went for the interview, sat and talked and everything, and they offered me the job. And I said, well, here's my problem. I just finished this feature. I have another one lined up. I don't know that I want to commit myself to a season of television like that. I said, I'll tell you what. Most sitcoms at that point were working 3 weeks on, 1 week off, 3 weeks on, 1 week off. That was their pattern. It was good for the actors. It was good for crews, all kinds of reasons. So I said, I'll make you a deal. I'll do the next 3 shows, and you can see if you like what I do, and I can see if I like what you do. I stayed there for 10 years. And in those 10 years, all kinds of other sitcoms came up, Yeah,
of course. It's so funny. My ex-wife did some set photography and some production photography, and something that we had discovered was a cast on the first season was lovely. A cast on the second season, their heads were a little swollen, as you might say. But you came in the middle of the second season, so your first experience with working and being in that environment must have been. I mean, did you feel a tremendous amount of pressure walking onto that set because it was renewed? Obviously, the show must have been a bit of a hit.
I was conscious of it, but I was also, because I was younger, I'll just say my ego was large enough that I knew what I was doing, and I knew how I was doing it right.
You know, absorb it.
So I just sort of flowed with it.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, working with that cast of women is pretty remarkable, and working with the technical crew who all had tons of experience. The technical director on that show, Tamburi, he started in television in the 40s, as a tech. Whoa. So all these people, tons of experience. I was in awe of most of them. And so I knew what I needed to do, and I kept my mouth shut and learned more and more and started doing more shows. And
so I'm sorry, did you come on as A2, you said?
Not on Golden Girls. I came in as the mixer.
Oh, wow.
Silver Spoons. I came in as the A2 on Silver Spoons.
Okay, got it.
And then
so as mixer left. As mixer, how many were in the sound department on a show like that?
So on Golden Girls, we'll use Golden Girls as the example. So I had myself and my A2. I had 2 boom operators and 2 boom pushers because we're on stage, you're using big Fisher booms with the heavy perambulators. So I had that. And then there were 2 other utilities that I could access. So that's like 9 people.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's such a different thing from being a one boom op and a sound mixer on a
on a single camera show, it's mixer, boom operator, and utility.
Yeah.
And I've done plenty of that. I've done my share of those also.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, okay, I'm going to pivot to a little more tech. So 2 booms, the perambulators, the whole thing, obviously the vast majority at that time must have been done on boom. Was there at that point no wireless lavs in play yet?
Not wireless lavs were for a special scene if you needed it, so let's jump forward a couple years. I did the Larry Sanders show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Enjoyed that.
And I came in on the Larry Sanders show, pre-production of the pilot episode, as a consultant to the mixer who they had hired. Because so the story goes, Bruce was hired. I ran into Bruce at a place called Electronic City here in Burbank. And Bruce said, "Oh, Ed, I'm so glad you're here. The perfect time." He said, "I just got this show, which has a live audience, and they want to do all this stuff." And he explained the show to me. And he said,
right, it's a show within a show.
The show within a show. And he said, "I need your help. I need you to consult with me." So I did. I consulted with him. I sat through those first 2 shows and did the interface in the truck for the show within a show, as he did the stuff on stage, traditional film style. And then he had an issue with production, and they called me and they said, "Would you want to do this? You got to come in and meet Gary." And I went, okay. So I went in to meet Gary, and my interview for Gary was like this. I introduced myself. He said, "Hi, nice to meet you." And then he went, "Wait, do it this way, or do it that way?" And I went, "Well, the way I would handle that, Gary, is this way, and I just answered him, and I just took it in stride. And I walked out of the room, and there were 2 other mixers sitting in the lobby waiting to meet with Gary. And then I got a call back, and I stayed there for years. I stayed there for the rest of the show.
So I just need to make sure I'm picking up what you're putting down there and that the audience gets it. Was he an extremely soft talker, or was he messing with you?
He mimed his questions to me to try to freak me out. He didn't.
Crazy man.
He was wacky. He was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant.
Oh yeah.
And a really nice guy, to boot through all of that. And we had a lot of fun on that show,
I think, as you're well aware, your skills and your resume get you in the door, but your personality, your ability to go with the flow, not be flapped, on being unflappable, and just a consistent performer keeps you there, right? Year after year after year.
That's it. You can't let them see you sweat, and you can't let them see you run, because both those things are deadly,
Absolutely.
It happened to me on a show when I was doing 24 frame playback. The reason that I was given that show from the sound department was because I didn't get easily flappable. I was not flappable. And it happened one day on the set, and we're talking about, if you know your film history, Richard Brooks, who goes back to Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and damn, I forget that. Jackie Gleason when he played the gambler, right? Those kind of movies. And we had a problem on the set one day. We were inside the Oval Office. They were doing a live press feed, and I had all the cameras and all the monitors all sunk up and and then the synchronizer died right after we started. And me from behind the wall yelled cut. And the director came screaming around. Richard came screaming around the corner, finger in my chest saying, "What are you doing? What's wrong?" And he kept going on and on. And I just stood there. I said, "We have a problem. It's not recording. I need 10 minutes. He said, "Okay." And he walked back to his desk on stage, and 9 minutes and 50 seconds later, he walked on set, put the actors in place, and said, "Okay, let's go." Didn't ask me if I was ready. I told him I needed 10 minutes. He took the 10 minutes, gave it to me. And from that time, we had a great relationship on the set.
Incredible.
He couldn't get to me. Anyway, So then one sitcom led to another sitcom, led to another sitcom. A lot of it was based on my reputation, obviously, and
Right.
based on my not being able to be scared off. It was, and
The
some
improbable Ed Moskowitz. It's on your business card.
some crews were larger, some crews were smaller. On Sybil Shepherd's sitcom, I actually had 12 booms up high, even though I only had 3 boom operators, because on that show, show was shot on film, not on videotape. So there was no room on the floor for the booms. So the booms go up high into the green beds and work from there. So I had 12 booms, all of them set in certain locations, and the operators would walk across the green beds from boom to boom.
So even at that point, so that was what, mid-90s?
Yeah.
Even then, lavaliers hadn't taken over.
No.
Because wasn't it West Wing that changed the game?
West Wing changed it a lot, and there were several other shows that I did a season of West Wing.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. The mixer on the show went away to do another show, and then didn't come back. So I stayed on the show for a while. And then the lavaliers, from around that time, there were lots of shows. ER was mostly on boom in the beginning.
Oh.
But it slowly has migrated to everybody has to be wired. Even if you're using the booms, they want everybody wired. I did a show called Life in Pieces. There was never a question if I was going to wire them. The actors were brought over to our station, wired them. We always I tried to boom everything. And the wires went on separate tracks for the actors. So in post, they could pull them up or whatever they needed.
Sure.
Or if we, not that we ever would, but if we had missed a line on a boom, we were protected on the lavaliers, That's the way that went. And now it's become SOP, standard operating procedure, that everybody gets wired. And you're not always allowed to get the boom into the set. You get lit out of the set sometimes, or you're physically not able to get in there, or they've got one camera way back there getting the wide shot, which only used to be used as an establishing shot until later, as film went away and digital became the mode.
Yeah.
They would just keep that camera running, and they didn't want you to invade the frame line.
As we said, wide and tight. We're going to shoot this wide and tight.
Exactly.
And you're just like, okay.
Yeah. And so how do you get the sound, that gorgeous, sweet boom sound, when you're 8.5 feet above them, so that you don't break the frame line?
Right.
You gotta go.
Right.
So, and technology, radio mic technology has increased 50-fold since then, since I had my original Vega radios.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We had Vegas on when I did the sports stuff in the early 2000s. and we only had 2 crystals in them, and we'd show up at a stadium and the NFL frequency coordinator would say, these are your frequencies. And we go, all right, we're going to rent Electrosonics because we can't use our Vegas,
Right. And Electrosonics, I became friends with the engineers at Electrosonics when they first, because if you they started by doing, they started their RF life doing those carrying speakers with amplified bullhorns, basically.
Right.
That was their first product. When they made their first decent radio mic, which was the 211s, I was at NAB in Las Vegas, and I went by to say hello at the booth, and they showed me the mic, and they said, Ed, you're really going to like these. And I said, really? How durable are they? And they were talking about how durable and how strong they were. And I went, really? And I dropped it on the floor in the booth at NAB. And I went, oh, it's really good, huh? I picked it up and we did a walk test around the floor at the Las Vegas Convention Center. That sold me on them then, and I still have them. Well, my son has them now.
Oh, nice.
Because he's using my kit. So
stuff built to that quality lasts and lasts and lasts. As long as the frequency band that you happen to buy isn't one that got
right. As long as eliminated. The FCC still allows you the space.
I had a Sennheiser set that I wasn't supposed to use, but I used it for quite a while.
Yeah, and everybody does, as long as you're in an area that you can get away with it. Here in LA, it's really tough. The spectrum is so overcrowded,
Imagine.
When I was at Hollywood Sound, Hollywood Sound is the one, you were talking about football. Hollywood Sound is the one that developed the NFL referees mic, right? So that the push to talk and squelch control and all that. Right. And we used to rent them to the NFL. And there was somebody from the RF department at Hollywood Sound who used to go to the games to sit there and monitor and make sure it all worked well. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the time.
More tech history.
Tell me a little bit about, give me a little bit of state of the art now. Let's talk about, you're still on set, finding your set on self these days, or what are you doing a lot these days?
So these days, I'm not going to set anymore. I really stopped that just before we moved up here. And I started concentrating on doing voiceover.
And you're up in No,
we're in Oxnard.
Oxnard, right?
Yeah,
Oxnard.
We're in the Channel Islands Harbor,
right?
In the marina. And I started doing that. That was when I stopped working on set. I'm a big baseball fan, as is our friend Scott. Scott, in fact, buys my season seats every year as part of, to add to his seats, because they were adjacent. That's how I met Scott.
At
the ball game. Yeah. And, I would go to the games, especially on the weekend games after working a 60 or plus hour week. And I would sit there at the games and I'd go, oh, wow, look at that. That was a great hit. Oh, and Scott, we would joke about it because we knew a lot of the same people. Yeah. And Scott said to me one day, he went, so Ed, what are you going to do when you're done doing that? When you're done, tired of doing the 70-hour weeks and schlepping equipment outside the LA Convention Center in the middle of the night and back and loading trucks and all that. And I looked at Scott and I said to Scott, Scott, I'm going to do what you're doing. And he went, oh, that's great. Yeah. Okay. But what are you what are you going to do?
I've heard that one before.
Yeah. I'm going to do what you're doing. And he went, no, you're serious. And I went, I'm dead serious. And so we battered back and forth like that for a while. He said, okay, if you're really serious like you say you are, here's who I want you to go study with. And he sent me to Harvey Kalmanson to start, right? And that's where it all started. And then, one thing led to another. I keep studying, I keep doing workshops, and I keep doing voiceovers. My resume in voiceovers is not as extensive as my other resume, but I'm having a hell of a lot of fun and I enjoy doing it, and here I am in my booth, my booth, which I lucked out because my friends at Hollywood Sound had this booth. They had acquired it from somebody who stiffed them on a rental job. So they acquired the booth. They used it as a speaker anechoic-ish chamber to test speakers in the warehouse without disturbing people, right?
You're sitting inside a vocalbooth.com Silver Series, I believe.
Yes, I am. And it's great, so one day then he acquired a Whisper Room dealership, and they had a Whisper Room that they went and put in the warehouse. And he said to me one day, he goes, "Hey, Ed, you're playing around with voiceovers, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You want a booth?" And I said, "Well, gee, Les, I don't know. Yeah, sure, I'll take it." He said, "Okay, come and get it."
Twist my arm.
Yeah, twist my arm. And so I did. And I lucked out. I took it apart. It's a great booth. It's all five walls, and I've got
it's the Diamond Series.
It's the Diamond Series, yes.
5-sided, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I've got a window in it. I've got, my door, and here it is. And then my equipment, you can see I finally bought myself a U87 at one point because I always wanted a U87, even before I was doing this. I'm an equipment junkie. I'll admit that. I'm a tech head. Right now I've got 3 mics in the booth. I have.
What else do you have in there?
I have my Audio-Technica 4072.
That's a 4072. I used to use a 4073A on sets. That was my big mic.
So I've got that, and then just for shits and giggles, I bought a Heil.
It's a Heil
PR77 Repro,
right?
Because I could get it in purple.
Yeah,
because that's been my trademark for decades.
I love it.
Right?
I love purple.
I'd show up on the set and they'd go, "Oh, the purple sound mixer's here," and so I utilized it.
That was the other thing I didn't mention. Being memorable also doesn't hurt either.
Correct,
but for good reasons.
For good reasons, not because I have a temper. It's because of that, and
oh man, that's cool.
So I utilized that. All my equipment was purple. My location package I had in purple road cases, and it worked.
Do you have a purple preamp? There's a brand literally called Purple.
There is a purple preamp, and just before we started this call, Apogee just reissued the purple interface. They're making 100 of them, but I don't need that much interface. I almost bought the Apogee interface only because it was purple, but it's too small. I don't know. At some point I might switch,
Oh, I love it. Oh my God.
But it's that kind of, and I have 6 416s because I needed them for stage. I have 2 of them are TFs, which were the flat versions. I have those, so my son uses those. I have Sheps CMIT 5s. I have all kinds of mics I could switch to.
Yeah, of course.
This is my baby, And
then, so what is your signal chain then after the mic? What do you use it?
My signal chain is from here straight into the 2i2 Focusrite, 3rd generation, not 4th generation. And I bought the 3rd generation after Gen 4 came out. Something just didn't feel right to me about Gen 4. So I have Gen 3. And then I go from there into my Mac, which is a laptop sitting here in the booth with me. And I'm using Adobe Audition.
There you go.
I started with Audacity when
Yep.
I first started. I started with Audacity and one of my Audio Technicas and a blue interface because it was really convenient. I could make it all fit really well where I was going. It was before I had the Mac laptop. I had a PC laptop, but it worked. It plugged in the USB like that, and boom, I was up and running.
I love that. I love that. Other than the U87, which is obviously, we know that's a $3,000+ mic. Really, what you have is a very, very basic setup. Ed has many mics and has access to or has used everything you can imagine. It's just using a mic into a Scarlett 2i2 into a Mac. Full stop.
Oh, full stop, just like that.
Easy, simple, less to go wrong, straightforward. And I know you need about the 4th gen. The 4th gen's they really changed the design topology of the unit. It's got digitally controlled preamps. It's got a lot of little, the feature creep problem, right?
Right.
It's not straightforward like the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st, where it's just analog gain pops, blah, blah, blah. Right? It's a totally different beast.
And you can hear that eventually, and some of it, people may go, God, but it makes it so much easier. Yeah, but I like to, after having lived behind so many consoles on location and in sitcom studios, I like to have control. I don't want the equipment to control me as much,
Right.
So that old saying, KISS.
Yes.
Keep it simple.
Well, there's another saying that I don't know if I invented, but I use it all the time. Is I like my audio equipment that you're interacting with as an actor. I want it to be one knob, one job.
Yeah.
So like
that's great.
The Apogee with the big silver knob, the Apollo with the big silver knob. No, like you got to quickly adjust your gain. You don't want to look at the thing and press the preamp button. Is it in the right mode? Oh, now the knob's working. No.
That's what happened to me on the sitcoms as the big consoles on stage went more and more digital.
Yep.
They were easier to fit into the booth, but to get to some of the controls, you had to hit layer 1 to layer 2 to be able to grab that fader control to pull it down if you had a problem. And
that's right.
I didn't like that. I liked as much surface as I could get with as much control, so that if I hear, when we were doing music, if I heard the hi-hat getting out of control, I wanted to be able to go over and grab fader 6 and tweak the EQ and pull the level down a little.
In a half a second.
And it's tougher some of the digital consoles have more surface, but you have to really plan where all the surfaces are. And those digital consoles have now crept back up size-wise so that there is more available surface that you can grab. We went to the theater while we were in New York. I went to see a show called And Juliet, the retelling of modern version of Romeo and Juliet. And I walked back and looked at the house console, and it's a big wraparound, it's a large console, all digital, but he can grab everything. And that show, Broadway shows are all RF, everybody.
Unbelievable numbers of channels of RF.
Yeah. Which drive, there are 3 Broadway RF coordinators who coordinate for the coordinators of the show, so that it all sort of comes to a central clearinghouse,
I mean, that they were ahead. From my perspective, they were ahead of the curve. Like, we had Jesus Christ Superstar come to Virginia Tech. That was probably 94, 90, something like that. I was on the local crew, and I watched the sound mixer basically nodding off at the board because the whole show was on a clock. Everything was on a clock. Every mic coming on and off, every fader move, everything was programmed. I was blown away. I've never seen anything like it my entire life. And at that time, they didn't have the big console couldn't do all the fader moves. So they had a little Yamaha O1V or some little Yamaha digital board, which was running all the Lavs. And it was
the O1V.
Doing its little.
I have one in the garage if you want to borrow it.
Not my world anymore. But my brother works at a theater in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and works with all Yamaha boards and does A1 and A2 and all that stuff you're describing, and to this day. And it's I remember also the whole design of the Yamahas, they could do the job of a board 4 times bigger, right? But you had one channel strip across the middle, which was the channel strip for all the channels. So you had to grab an EQ, you had to be in the right mode, and it was not, you can't do it as live so dynamically. So
it gets in your way. The console sounds great, and it has lots of capabilities, and it has a lot of routing in and out. But when I started doing sitcoms and stuff, we were using Yamaha PM 1000s, the 16 channel analog console. And that's when Went developed he took a 1000 from us at Hollywood Sound, actually, and made the matrix a monitor matrix for us. So we had even more control. But then the consoles started to get big, and that was fun. They got so big, then everybody went, no, it's too much room. No, because the producer's going, why do you need that big sound booth up in there? We only have 3 people speaking at a time. What do you need all this stuff for?
Exactly. I had built a remote recording truck with my dad back in the 90s, and I bought a used, I believe it was a Rycote, or it might have been Horizon. Not Rycote, sorry, Rapco Horizon, or Rapco at the time.
Right.
Transformer isolated stage box splitter.
Yeah.
That was my crown jewel. It wasn't my little Soundcraft board. It wasn't my Tascam D88s. That snake box. Yeah, that snake box was the really cool thing. And I could carry that into the venue, plop it on stage next to the stage box, and it, as long as they were cool with it, plug all the stage mics into my box and give them a transformer ISO split, and then run direct to my RV outside and do live records and stuff. And I did that for a few years, and it was a blast.
It is fun, I've done shows where we used our Hollywood Sound built a bunch of custom press bridges for events where you could take, and everybody could take their feeds, and I wired some of those in the beginning, sat there with all the transformers and just kept down this row, down this row, down this row. I became pretty proficient at that. It
takes a lot of focus, concentration. You know,
even when I worked for, there was a group called Filmways Audio Group. Filmways Audio did all kinds of live shows too, and then Filmways acquired Wally Hyder Recording. And so we sort of started to interface with that and their remote trucks. And so I've been around this production stuff a long time. So making the transition from behind the glass to in front of the glass has been a blast,
And how many years has it been now since you worked with Harry Kalmanson?
That would be 7
years.
6.
So you're 3 years away from making it big in voiceover.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot of my clients, there seems to be some magic thing. Either it's the 10,000 hours mastery thing. I don't know what it is, but 10 years is when sometimes people really hit their, career stride,
You hit the stride. There is a stride that happens, it's like I've been studying lately with, Paulette Lifton over at Voice Masters. I've been doing dubbing and live action dubbing and anime dubbing and stuff like that with her. and I'm having a ball doing that. That's where some of my recent credits are from, is a anime project and dubbing a telenovela, and as well as commercials and narration and stuff, all that stuff. And I keep cranking away. I'm up here in the booth every single day. I give it at least 3 hours, if not more, a day, depending on what I want to do. And I'll say to you and the rest of the audience, yes, I do the pay to plays for a little bit, because if for nothing else, they're great workouts.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So
I'll go to that then. So what is your kind of bread and butter in voiceover? Is there certain styles and genres that you're booking the majority of, or are you starting to really dip into a lot of different genres?
I'm dipping into a lot of genres. My strengths are in live action dubbing,
mm-hmm.
and in commercial and narration. I've done a couple of e-learning things for UBS Bank, and a couple of Christmases ago, I did Santa Claus, a Santa Claus commercial and a Santa Claus thing for a hospital group. I have a unique voice print. My voice print is not, I can be every man. I can be the guy next door, but I'm not 22 years old.
Right.
And I recognize that, and
right.
I play to that. I use it because it's me.
Absolutely.
I'm studying acting with Mimi Maynard, because she can beat the shit out of me sometimes.
Some of those coaches are pretty notoriously tough.
Yeah, she can be tough, but I learned from it, and everything is additive. In that regard, nothing is bad. When I did my first demo, Scott heard it, and Scott wrote back to me, and he goes, "Wow, I wouldn't have suspected that you are a newbie. You sound like you've been doing this for a while." And the truth is that when I was on set, when I was recording, every day when I'd set up, analog tape, I'd set up my Nagra, I'd lay down tones, and then I would do my little radio announce speech, talking to the guys in the transfer room and
mm-hmm.
welcoming them to the set. Welcome to day 62 of the occupation in episode 3 of season 4. And I do a whole little story. Did they listen to them? I doubt it. They probably loaded the reels, fast forwarded until they heard,
right.
But it made me feel good. So I've been practicing for years.
Practicing, but also listening.
Listening.
Really well.
Yeah.
Listening to a lot of voices in different styles and genres, and a student of audio.
So these are my HD 25-1s. Okay. I was given I have 3 pair, but my first pair of HD 25s from Sennheiser were given to me by Dr. Sennheiser as a thank you gift.
Come on.
Yeah. Because so when Sennheiser went to the MKH series shotgun microphones,
mm-hmm.
one of their first endeavors was a long shotgun to replace the long 816. That was the MKH 70. And I had prototypes number 2 and 3 to use. We used them on Golden Girls. And I found a flaw. There was a glitch where the shielding was not proper enough. So we were picking up taxi cabs in Hollywood.
Oh.
And it wouldn't be constant, just every once in a while. And so Dr. Sennheiser was here for AES, came to the booth. I played him a recording that I had made, and he and his engineers listened to it. He saw my setup. He went through all of that. They went over in the corner and huddled and talked in German to themselves for us not to hear. And then I got invited to speak at a seminar that he was running discussing the MKH series. And they solved the problem. You know, that was the good part. But I wound up getting a pair of HD 25s, which have become my gold standard, because I was using them on location when I was recording. And the trick was, whatever I heard here in these ears off of those headphones is what I heard coming back from the transfer room when the tapes were sent in. And that, to me, was it. You know, a lot of people like using the Sony headphones. Right. They have a little bit of color. They're a little bit more comfortable to wear. They're a little tighter. At times they're more of a cup. This is more of an open ear. But I got used to these, and that's what my standard is. And even when I'm here in the booth, I use my speakers for most of my rough cutting in and all that.
Sure.
But when I need to, I put on the cans, and that's the gold standard for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I lived by those things. Were my reputation. Even when we were doing live audience sitcoms, I would wear my headphones instead of relying on the booths and the speakers in the booth. And there were other mixers who would come in and go, "Why are you wearing headphones? Your speakers are good enough to hear everything." And I went, "Okay, that's fine. I like wearing the headphones because I hear all the definition." And when you're mixing live sitcoms, you've got dialogue, you've got audience reaction, and you've got effects and music.
Mm-hmm.
And you're making a mono mix or a stereo mix for the rough cut. You have to be sure it's right, even though everything is isolated. The audience is isolated, all the booms are isolated. The mix has to come from somewhere, and that's what goes to the booth where the producers and directors are watching the show go down.
Right.
You know, so I had a lot of that, and now I just keep going. You know,
yeah, the reference mix is really that's the first thing they're going to hear. The first impression of how that show's going to work out for them.
And I got pretty good at. I had a technique that I used for setting up audience reaction about how many mics I like to place over the audience and where I like to place them and angles of all of that, you know, and how much compression or non-compression. I mean, here in the booth, you asked me about my chain. I will tell you, and this is not against anybody, I don't have a stack. Less is more, you know, and I use Adobe Audition to remove some of the noise when I send it in. And that's about all I really use. I don't have a console up here to use for EQ. I've thought about bringing in one of my small consoles only so I could bring in more mics. So I could easily switch from mic to mic, because right now all I've got is the two on the Focusrite.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think in Scott's studio, I've set up either in person or remotely. I've set up thousands of voiceover studios.
Yeah.
But Scott's studio, we've condensed it down. I've weaned him off Avalon preamps. Sorry, my friends at Avalon. My friend Scott is the hands that touch every Avalon preamp, that benches them, repairs them.
Yeah.
Sorry, Scott. But I've gotten those out of his booth because I just didn't want the maintenance issues of the tubes and et cetera, et cetera. And we've gone with the Apollo because I've set up hundreds of those and I know them really well. And we do as little as humanly possible, but there's one plugin called CVox. That's this really transparent Cedar It's made by Cedar, licensed to Apollo or Universal Audio to use as a plugin. So now you get to use Cedar as an insert in your chain. And that's
Wow.
been a bit of a game changer for a lot of home studio voice actors to lower the noise floor very transparently. And that's one of those killer apps.
Yeah. CVOX.
CVOX, it's called C-Suite CVOX. Branding wise, Cedar's name wasn't on it for a really long time. Now all of a sudden you load the plug and it says by Cedar in little letters at the bottom. I don't think they really wanted to admit that it was their algorithm, because their business is selling their boxes, and they're very expensive.
They're very expensive. And in the film and television business, Cedar is the gold standard of both plugins and boxes for post-production.
That's right.
As the cinema audio, I was president of the Cinema Audio Society for 6 years, and I'm still on the board. We've given our technical achievement awards to Cedar more than once.
Wow.
For the development of what they've done for the post-production.
Wow.
And
wow.
Because they're seamless, they do what they're supposed to do without all these weird artifacts all over the place.
They do no harm.
Correct.
That's every time we talk about processing, and I do a lot of process. I mean, I set up stacks for people every day. And always my goal is, does it sound better after it was turned on or before? It's like, because I can go down a rat hole with EQ and parametric EQ and all this stuff. I always will turn it off again and go, did I make this better or not?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I just can't make it better. I'm usually trying to correct for booth problems, acoustical resonances in booths, so I'm notching out here and there. And then I'm like, I'm going to turn that off. It's not better. I mean, I've gotten better at making it better, but it's the subtlety of it is so key, and it can't get in the way. It can't do any harm, especially all the noise reduction stuff and Audition and Audacity and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It gets overused so much, and it just causes so much damage to the
big time. When we would do live concert stuff, the third octave equalizer would sit there at the top of the chain as for the PA, and you'd ring out the room, which I learned to ring out venues using the old Altec real-time analyzer, which it traveled in a case that was 16 inches tall.
It must have been pretty big for that era.
It was huge, and very deep and very heavy and very green, because that was Altec's color, the dark green. But that's how I learned to ring out a room, put it up, let it ring, go to the EQ, start notching it down slowly until you could get a flat line.
And eventually you could probably do it you probably could do it mostly by ear.
You can ballpark it in pretty close, you know. I still have a small real-time analyzer that I have on my bench that I can always bring in here and, play with. But you learn to do that. And you also learn, when do you hit the bypass switch? Because you play back you do your playback stuff and you go in, out, in, out. Better, like an eye doctor. Is it better here or is it better here?
Right.
And lots of times it was better out than it was. You've overcompensated, and then you've got time, you can start again.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
But having too much technology sometimes can be a curse. You can trip yourself up, especially if you really don't understand or know what you're doing.
Yeah, I used to call myself the Maytag man of audio, because if I did my job right, I rarely got a call. Just like it just works, right?
Mm-hmm.
Until the Apollo came out, the Universal Audio Apollo, because it's, first of all, to the layman, it's completely hard. I mean, I get it because I'm an audio engineer, and you would get it probably too, because it has aux sends and aux masters, and it has a familiar topology to it. But to most people, it's totally totally Greek, right? So I set it up and then I save a preset. Right, done. We're good. Well, guess what doesn't just stay in stasis? Mac OS. And what nags you every week or month? The upgrade, Mac OS.
Mac OS.
So one of my best customers is an Apollo user, because as soon as they trip up and install the Mac OS upgrade, all of a sudden the Apollo will not load the driver and you got to reinstall it again. And there's a whole process to do this. It's not straightforward at all. And so that's kept us pretty busy dealing with everybody's Apollo problems.
Yeah.
But generally, they are very reliable. The first one I installed was 13, 14 years ago. And if you just can leave your computer alone, leave it well enough alone, those things go and go.
But it's so hard to do when they keep nudging you to upgrade and upgrade.
I know.
That's one of the things I hate about the technology. It's like,
I agree.
I got it. Leave me alone. Just let me keep working.
My goal is I want it to be an appliance. I just want it to be an appliance.
Yeah.
And, as soon as something is a computer, it's so hard to keep it as an appliance because it's connected to the internet. Well, if you're on the internet, then it has to be secure. That means there has to be security updates, and you're on the web, so you're probably using Chrome, and Chrome is getting updates every couple of days or weeks. And so nothing is ever consistent. Everything is in flux. And the only computers I know of that don't really work in that world are like the Pro Tools computers that sometimes are 15, 20 years old, cheese grater Macs from the the late 90s, 2000s that are still in place because they just keep right on running, and we don't upgrade. Everything works.
Everything works. We know how it works. We know why it works. We do it this way because it works.
That's right.
Yeah, it's really important. I have one of my friends in New York is still doing stuff on a Windows machine, not audio stuff, but he is an audio engineer. But the stuff he's doing, he's still using a Windows 7 machine. He never even upgraded to Windows 10, which is now going away.
Right.
Because all of the graphics programs that he was working with all work perfectly in 7. There's no problem.
And it's fine if you're not browsing the web and doing banking on the thing. There's not much to worry about. It's a utility. It's an appliance.
It's an appliance.
Ed, we could talk for hours more, and I hope we do get to do that because
we could do that again.
It's so nice chatting with you, getting to know you. Are you going to AES in Long Beach?
I will probably be there. Not all of it, but I will probably,
The show has shrunk quite a bit.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take too long to see. I'm not talking about all the different talks and the lectures, but I mean, the show itself is not very big. It's definitely an easy to do in a day, but I'm definitely going to be there for one of the days for sure. So, hey, maybe I'll bump into you there.
Maybe we'll bump in and share a glass of tea or something. And
that sounds great. Man, this is fun. Really great to get to know you. I love hearing your stories. I love hearing the things that are familiar to me. And so many, the stories obviously never end. There's just so much there. And I hope your voiceover career continues and you continue to enjoy it. And I'm sure you've got many good years of voice performing ahead, for sure.
From your mouth to their ears. Yes, absolutely. I do too. I love it,
Well, if somebody wants to get to know you better, do you have a website? How could they find out more about you? And
so my website is, like you see on the bottom of the Zoom screen, edmoskowitzvo.com.
Excellent.
And
if they want to know about your history, IMDb,
you can go to IMDb, or you can go from my website. There's a link button to Edward L. Moskowitz, CAS.
Got it.
CAS standing for the Cinema Audio Society.
That's right.
Because that was my on-screen credit for all those decades. Even though some of the networks refused to put the CAS, the way I got them to do it is when I signed my deal memos for work, I would make my name Edward L. Moskowitz, CAS. So it became part of my name, and it was very hard for them to go, but that's not, yes, it is. It's on the deal memo. You approved the deal memo.
It was Moskowitz.
Yes.
Oh, so fun.
This was
It's
fun.
been a real pleasure. Thanks so much for your time, man. I just can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
We'll definitely be staying in touch. And
thank you for asking. It was a pleasure to be here.
Keep on purpling.
George the Tech.